Welcome back to Acme's Funniest Person Podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Miller, and we're here with another episode about Acme's 33rd now annual amateur contest. You can still sign up, by the way. You can sign up through the end of July, pretty much, if you're real nice to somebody. And the finals will be the last week of August. Semifinals last week of August. Finals 1st of September. Not the first day, the first Wednesday in September. I'll be the host. You can come see me. And we're here with this episode with one of Acme's newest, tied for newest, emcee, Ben Katzner.
I can't even just have newest. I got to be tied.
You got to be tied, Lily. I don't know. I don't know who they
God.
called first. So you're co-newest.
Our souls will be entwined forever.
I've known you longer, so I think that gives you the tiebreak.
Thank you. And I'm better. No,
We're gonna put a poll out there online. Everybody thinks Lily's, but
let the people
let the people
them
decide.
choose. You can decide.
We'll have a 2-person contest. Funniest new MC at Acme, and there's only 2 entrants.
I love this.
It sounds like something Lewis would have me and Nate do to drive each other insane.
Yeah, no matter what happens, both of us have to quit afterwards.
Obviously. Well,
Yeah.
You don't get any higher than that.
No,
You've reached the pinnacle.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard Acme.
Thank you.
It's very nice to have you. Do you have a week yet?
So my first week will be in July. We're doing I think it's like a host showcase or something. But technically my first, I don't know when this is coming out, May 31st will be my first day. I'm just doing a Saturday hosting for Greg Coleman. So.
Oh, nice. That'll be fun.
Last DEI comedy night of Acme. So, it should be fun. But I'll be around. I'm always around. I'm here at the mic. I'm always dropping by.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a night where there was some sort of confusion, and didn't you host a show before you technically worked here?
Yeah, so this
is great. I've never heard of anyone else doing this, by the way.
So I will, let's pull the curtain back a little bit. I have technically been paid to work this comedy club before being hired to work here. One, I came in as a feature for Mike Kaplan. Shout out to Mike. He was just here.
Oh, I didn't know you featured for Kaplan when he was here one time. That's very cool.
Which was awesome. It was like everything you could ever dream of. And then 2, I was down the street at a different comedy club, and I think Joey Hamburger called me. And when Joey calls you, you're like, all right, what sort of crisis is he in? Like, who's bleeding? What happened? You know what I mean? And Joey called me. He's like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, okay, what hospital do I need to go to? And then he's like, no. Can you come to Acme? They need a host. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like a thing that should be.
Feels like a prank.
Yes.
I've literally never heard of it happening.
Yes.
By the way.
Every opportunity I've gotten here has kind of felt like a prank. When I found out that I was hired here, I was on a plane, and Trevor Anderson texted me and was like, hey, so are you free in July? And I thought he'd be like asking me to work like a nursing home or something or help him move.
Sure.
Can we just say, I don't like the open-ended question of like, hey, what are you doing?
I don't like the open-ended question either, because
like
maybe I'm doing something depending on what you're asking me to do.
That's exactly what I said, because I've been tricked before. And then he's like, well, would you like to work Acme? And I was like, why are you? I texted him. I go, hey, if you're joking about this, I will jump out of this plane right now. All right? This is not something we mess around with right now. I'm not in the mood. But so that's how I found out I was working here. And then so I had the same kind of disbelief when Joey was like, hey, they need a host. Do you want to do it? But I came in. I think Andy Woodhull was the headliner.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah, he's very, very funny dude. And then, it was just a fun, like, one-off random schedule quirk that helped me out. So
yeah, that's. But I've never heard of that happening here one time. I'm sure it's happened at other clubs, but I've never heard of it happening here one time.
Yeah, I think it's because I'm pretty. I think I'm pretty privileged. They're like, we need a hot host to get this show started. And they just let me do it. And I appreciate that. And, hot people do deserve better things.
And you'd already featured, so you're like, I got this.
Right. It really was. I've come in here the most reverse order you possibly could. I've featured. I've hosted. I almost feel like, I hope maybe that hosting was like kind of an audition. I mean,
it couldn't have hurt.
Right.
Clearly.
Yeah. And then, and now I am paid to work here.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Which is excellent. Yeah. Now, what year did you start?
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't ask this question. No, I think I started in 2014.
That's what I would have guessed.
Yeah.
A few years after me.
Okay.
I was like established, but still kind of new. I would say, like I was working here.
Oh, that's so funny. You were like, not just I was like, that's a crafty veteran. Bryan Miller.
Wow, I was a child.
Well, that's awesome. everyone who was here when I started doing comedy in Minneapolis, I was like, well, they're basically Bernie Mac to me. They're all the best comedians I've ever seen.
That's the nicest compliment I've ever gotten.
They've all been doing all this incredible stuff for so long. I had no context because I didn't really I don't even know if I even saw a stand-up show before I started doing comedy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't really. Maybe you can tell this when I'm on stage. I wasn't like a stand-up guy. I wasn't like really watching a bunch of stand-up when I was younger. I was more of a sketch person. So I'd watch like SNL and Mad TV and then Chappelle's Show and stuff like that.
Interesting, because I almost would have thought the opposite, just because I don't know. I think you're kind of writing forward in a way. I mean, I don't know. You have such a clear narrative, but it's not like you're not doing like characters or anything. I would think of a sketch person to be more character,
more fun on stage. Yeah, I agree.
Hey, you're talking to the least fun person on stage.
Yeah, that's actually a thing I'm kind of working on now. Is I want to be better about putting like that sketch energy into bits.
Sure.
And being like, sometimes you can tell someone got high and then they thought of an idea and then they're working it out on stage.
Sure.
Like, I kind of want to be the guy who got high and has like, what do you think the first guy who ever ate a marshmallow was thinking? I want more of that sort of stuff. And I want more like sketches to play out on stage. So that's where I came
Did you do sketch before stand-up?
A little bit.
Okay.
But in high school. So it'd be like, I actually, looking back to see when I did the contest last, I found an old sketch I did in high school. And it was like our video, it was a bunch of different sketches. We did our video yearbook.
Yeah.
And I truly believe I've never been funnier than I was during that time. Like the ideas we had, like I just saw a little clip and it was like, I don't know, I must have been a senior, and then like the whole bit, this isn't going to make any sense here, but watching it visually was awesome. It was just like we had the most uncomfortable, awkward freshman like climbing out of a dumpster. And I was like, artistically, I don't know what this is supposed to mean, but I know I'm still laughing about it like 20 years later. So
David Lynch also can't explain his imagery.
Exactly.
It just exists.
I was the David Lynch of my high school, and that nobody knew what the fuck I was doing. But yeah, I just love stuff like that. Like I really remember being like a big SNL, Mad TV, truly. And then
Mad TV was funny.
Mad TV was very funny, especially when you're a kid. Like it's just, it really just hit in a way where you didn't realize how problematic some of it was. You're just like, I don't know. They're doing voices and they're being goofy with their bodies. This is incredible.
Well, because SNL is such an institution that it has like institutional vibes, and it has for a long time. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I remember like when In Living Color came out, I was pretty young, and I just remember being like, wait, you can do it this way? Like it was just like In Living Color. I wasn't even a huge SNL guy because I was probably like 7 or 8 when Living Color came out, and like that's all we watched.
Sure.
Like Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, David Allen Greer, like that was the crazy SNL felt old at that because they were just doing wild stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. SNL is like, true. Most of them went to Harvard or whatever. So like, if SNL was Harvard, I felt like.
Mad TV was a state school.
I was gonna say Mad TV is like New Jersey Technical,
like a solid state school, like respectable.
Right. But
Good
it's like a lot of people who grew up to be like mechanics and stuff. But you're like, those mechanics are the funniest people I've ever hung out with in my entire life. And the Harvard people are like, it's
funny that like Mad TV, like if you're on Mad TV, then someone from SNL gets a movie, and then you get to be the sidekick in the movie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
But some very funny people.
Yeah.
But so what made you try stand up then? Considering you weren't like super into stand up,
I think part of it was. It's twofold. One, I was in journalism, and then I started doing like screenplays and stuff, and I was like, I'm writing this stuff, and then the feedback loop is so long. It's like you write something down, you give it to someone, takes them forever to get it back to you. You rewrite, blah 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 blah. And sometimes I was just writing stuff that I maybe thought was funny, and I wanted more satisfaction, I guess.
Sure. Or to answer, find out, is this funny?
Yes. Yeah. More quickly find out if something is funny. So I was like, oh, what's a way to do that? And then I started talking about stand-up or whatever. And maybe then, around then, maybe it was like those Comedy Central half hours or presents started hitting my radar a little bit more. But then I also had a friend, Bryce Anderson. Shout out to Bryce Anderson. We talked about stand-up, and he dared me to do it. He's like, you'll never do it. He dared me.
Nice.
Which is the best way to get me to do anything, is to say I'll never do it.
Same thing.
I'm sure that's how I'll die. Like, I bet you can't jump off that building. I'm like, I could do it. I can do it. Whatever. It's fine. And so then I just tried it. I started in St. Cloud, which wouldn't recommend for most people, but there's a good scene there now.
And there's some funny people from up there.
Hilarious people. Yeah.
Just not generally the most chill town in the world,
right?
To say the least.
I think between the kids who are doing it, or the people who are doing it there now, and then a guy like Adrian Washington, who has really put that place on the map. It's a whole different place than where I started. I started at this place called Rum Runners. Okay.
Oh yeah, I did Rum Runners
Yeah.
right toward the end of its run as like a Yoder gig.
Yeah.
Then it was just an open mic for a while, I think.
And then it was a building that burned down.
Exactly, and then it was an ash heap.
You got out right at the right time.
Yeah, that might have been me. I might have flicked a match as I walked away. Actually, I had a good set there.
And this building, I mean, notorious for like serving underage kids and
Sure.
like the floors. I still remember how sticky the floors were.
Yeah.
And it was just like that. It's so funny that that's where I started comedy. Side note, okay, one of the guys I started with, his name, he'll never see this, so I'm saying his name's Jack, and I remember him being like, it was probably bad, but I just like had a more solid set than him or whatever.
Sure.
And he's like, yeah, the only reason you even got last is because your friends are here. I remember that, and like that sort of energy, that pettiness, like kept me going for so long. That place was crazy. There's a guy named Perrin who, like, you remember him?
Oh, I remember Perrin.
Okay.
He hosted the
Yes.
only reason I got to work there, it was like the one time of the year that Perrin was on vacation.
Yeah.
And they called me in to host for
Awesome.
P-Bow was featuring Pat Bauer, if you
Yep,
remember.
yep.
And honestly, the funny thing, I can't remember who it was, but the headliner was like a pretty respectable, genuinely funny headliner.
Yeah.
I remember he was like chagrined to be in Rum Runners,
Yeah.
but he was funny.
That's what's so funny is like now I understand more about how the vibe of a headliner who was probably at Rum Runners at that time. Whereas I was like, oh, okay, this is so good. This is my big chance. This is my opportunity. And they're like, I think this is the last gig I'll ever do.
Yeah.
It's so funny, the juxtaposition of those two things. But started there, and then eventually it was like, hey, I want to do this more. I got enough positive validation. I wonder what would have happened if I would have straight up bombed. I don't think I bombed like my first two times. I think probably the third or fourth time was not that great. I don't know what would have happened if I would have bombed right away, but it went well enough that I started doing a little bit more regularly, and then I was driving from St. Cloud to come to Minneapolis to do open mics and stuff, and then eventually contest season rolls around, I think, and then, that's how I found myself on this stage.
Yeah. So you did the contest then would have been 2015 or 14?
I think it was 2014 looking back.
So it was the year, because some people, if they start in like September,
Yeah.
like, well, the contest is already in the rear view.
Yeah.
That's happened to me. I started September. I got here the last week of August, and I heard there's this big amateur contest. I'm like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah, the semifinals are this week.
Yeah, right,
I was like, well, that's probably a little late for me.
Yeah, I'm thinking I probably started in the fall or maybe in the winter or something. I don't know. The timing is kind of weird for me, but I know looking back at these, because I went back on Facebook, and there are these embarrassing posts of me being like, someone being like, hey, when's your next gig? I'll be like, well, I'll be going to the Acme Comedy Company competition. You should check it out, whatever. And that was in 2014 in like March or May or something. So that's early.
Sure.
So
do you remember who won that year?
I don't remember who won one. I was trying to figure that out. I know, I feel like Mariel Widener, if you remember her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's her name anymore, but I think she was in the finals, and I don't know who the other people would have been.
Sure. I can't remember. I mean, I'd have to go back and look at it. I'm sure I know.
Yeah.
I probably was judging.
Yeah.
I used to judge the
I'm
finals
really
pretty
trying to
often.
figure it out, but that's the only person I remember, just because I remember being like, okay. That was my first taste of like real like defeat in a thing where you're like, oh, no, I think I'm pretty good. I think I got a chance. And like you really like what you're doing, and then you're like, yeah, sometimes it doesn't really matter how good you were. They just like the other person better, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and in 3 minutes, it's
Yeah.
also just like, I don't know, they caught a little spark that
Yep.
lasted for 3 minutes, and
Yeah.
you didn't that night.
Yeah.
So you made this? Did you make the semifinals?
I think I made the semifinals because I think my first night it was me, and I feel like I don't know if you ever met Andy Keenan.
Oh yeah,
Something
Andy
like that.
Keenan,
I'm pretty
absolutely, super nice guy.
Pretty sure we were doing it on the same night, and I think I advanced, and I remember him, I think, being like, oh, good job, whatever. Like I didn't. You moved on. I didn't get it. Take one for St. Cloud. Or
He's
something.
a very nice
He's a
guy.
very
He
nice man.
would not surprise me
Yes.
if he was just
He was-
super encouraging.
I think he was
yeah.
very encouraging. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this right. Who knows? I've done too many mushrooms.
Yeah.
But and then I think I made it to the semifinal, and like when you're in the semifinal, you're just like, well, obviously I'm a finalist basically. This
is just a brief
Yeah.
stepping stone
right,
to my.
right. And then I didn't make it, and I don't really remember who did make it besides Mariel, but
Did she beat you on your night of the semis, basically?
I think so.
Yeah.
yeah, because we wouldn't both move on after that.
You can.
Oh.
Much like the whole thing, the semifinals, it's all cumulative score.
Mm.
So it's literally just 25 people on a list. What was their score by
Yeah.
points? So you can easily, in fact, this funny connection. In the semifinals my year, I beat Marielle's now ex-husband Zach.
Sure.
But he still moved on because he had a higher score than somebody else from a different night. So we rematched in the finals, and he beat me by one position. He got third, and I got fourth in the finals.
Wow.
So we basically fought a family in the contest together between the two of us.
Yeah. That's hilarious. When they get married, we're just like, oh wow, this is at us.
we should have been invited, honestly.
This is crazy.
But yeah, it was and I've seen that happen. I mean, I think one year there was like 3 people from one night at the semifinal.
Oh, really?
Because sometimes it just kind of bunches up where like the 3 best people. And then I also have a theory. I don't know if you heard last night. I was talking to some contestant guy, very nice fella who's competing tonight, and I was telling him I think you're actually better off. Some people think like, oh, great, I think I'm the best one here by far. Everybody else is real nervous. I think you're better off to be in a night with somebody who's really good. Somebody else, hopefully too, you're pretty good, right? Because like if I see guy A second, right, and I'm like, oh, he's got something. I'm giving him some 6s and 7s, and we're going toward the top of the scorecard. And then the girl B comes out. And then she's as funny or maybe a little funnier. It's like, well, I gotta bump them both up because they're both so good. She's got higher than him, but not much, Sure. Whereas if it's like a bunch of like, if it's like total clueless amateurs, and then one person who's pretty good, you're like, oh, I can give them all 6s in there. It feels like they're destroying the competition.
Sure.
So I do think there's a little bit of a rising tide kind of raises all boats. On your night, it can work that way because it doesn't matter if you. It truly doesn't matter if you win.
Yeah, I think you're better off quitting comedy and getting a real job.
Yeah,
right?
there's that.
Camera?
I mean,
is that the camera? Look at me. Quit. Don't do this. You're going to be miserable. This is pointless. But that being, I do think I think just in general, it's fun sharing the stage with someone who's good.
Yes.
Like, I've noticed that when I do showcase shows or whatever, like, and spending time in New York, like, I feel like I get better and I'm more locked in when I know there's someone really good on the lineup. This would happen sometimes. I don't condone this. I don't think it's okay, but this would happen. My first time in Minneapolis, starting to come to this mic more regularly, and Cy Amundsen would drop in. Too tall, not good looking, don't like him. And he would drop in, and he would he has to have done this on purpose. I'm going to ask. I've never asked him, but he would bump me almost every single time, so he would go right ahead of me. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm just working. I got to work on this new thing or whatever. And then he would do like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I feel like his Comedy Central half hour or whatever. And I'd be like, you hate me. That's what this is. But it would make me really be like, okay, I need to like focus. Because this was before I was hired, obviously, when I'm still really trying to be like, oh, okay, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. I'm trying to make this good impression. So I like being on a good show with good people just to like see where I stack up. And like, obviously if it doesn't go my way, I want to die after, but
sure.
More often than not, it's fine.
Yeah, my dad was a golfer, kind of like a country golfer, not like a country club golfer, sort of, But he said it. I think it's true. He said you always play a little better when you play with somebody great. Like they might still kick your ass, but he's like you tend to play better when you play with good people. It's just something about it, and I think there's something to that with comedy. Also, it's like the audience is like keyed up to a new level that you can then if you're also good can take advantage of,
and you can see a real. You can get a real audit of the room and see like what the potential is. Because there's a lot of times where we walk in, and they're not feeling it tonight. Bad audience, whatever, which you're never supposed to say, but we say all the time. And then someone goes in and crushes, and you're like, okay, yeah, maybe my jokes. Maybe I work a little harder on my jokes this week. That's fine.
Or the kind of the flip side of that is somebody does something really weird and interesting, and it gets a great reaction, and you're like, oh, I think I can get as weird as I want.
Yes, that is awesome. That's like one of my favorite things to see when you just. Locally, like watching someone like Joey Hamburger go on stage and just be like, I don't know where this is going. And then like incredible payoff. And just by trying something weird and unique, it's like, oh, that does give me permission to try the darker thing, to try the weirder thing, to try the more abstract thing. So
I think it's good if everybody's pushing a little bit in different directions, and it expands everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you move to New York?
I moved to New York in the winter, January of 2017.
Yeah, because you were there way pre-pandemic, I remember.
Yeah. I was there pre-pandemic and then stuck there during the pandemic.
Yeah, how was that?
It was kind of like, every sci-fi movie I've ever seen in my life. And I remember they were quarantining a place called New Rochelle, which is like a little more upstate, I think. and just being like, well, this is zombies. I've heard the word quarantine.
Yeah, right.
I've seen 28 Days Later or whatever. I've seen all the movies. Zombies are happening. What's our escape plan? Or do we just die in this apartment? But yeah, it was interesting just being kind of at the epicenter of a lot of stuff, and then seeing how, one, New York changed afterward once it started opening up, and then two, how comedy has changed afterward.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I was going to places in New York like Creek in the Cave, and where like you hear comedians now talk, like, you know, you'll hear Dan Soder or Mark Norman or all these people on a podcast be like, yeah, we go to the Creek in the Cave, and then we go to the cellar, and we do this, blah blah blah, and it's like that hub just doesn't, after COVID, just didn't exist anymore. Like, now it's a kickboxing gym. You know what I mean? Like, you see how your comedy, everything that was your comedy world, can just kind of in an instant go away and change, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't need, you don't need a pandemic for that. I think
Right. But it happened to so many places at the same time because of that. Yeah.
Yes. And it's just interesting, like meeting post-pandemic comedians. Like it's like I don't even have a good example for what that is, but it's just like weird when someone's like, yeah, I moved to New York from Nashville and 2021. I'm like, what? Is that even allowed? Yeah. I don't know how you got in here.
They should have, only the exits should have been open for a while.
And just like, they just have a different mentality. I think, you know, a lot of people are definitely, if you've started in the last 5 years, you're probably more social media savvy. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of people who will film open mic sets and put them up and whatever. And they're not wrong. They're just like, yeah, you throw the content on the wall and you see what sticks. And like, that is so the antithesis of how I was brought up.
Yeah.
Here, it was a lot of like, hey, you keep your head down until someone pokes you, just picks you.
Yeah.
And then they're like, and then you start whatever. Then when you're ready, someone will grab you. And it's interesting watching people kind of marry those two approaches, and for our sanity and for our careers, you know, it's like been fascinating. But it was a different place. New York pre-pandemic was an awesome experience, and like just a completely different place than Minneapolis, you know.
Sure. And then after the part, what was kind of inspired your move back here?
It was the pandemic, honestly. We were just sitting in our apartment for like 6 months being like, it'd be nice to have a backyard, don't you think?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
My wife and I often talk during the pandemic, because you're a married fellow like myself, and I always like being married.
Not if she sees this. I'm single.
Being married during the pandemic was kind of was really great. I mean, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like people who were, or at least even having roommates versus like people I knew who like lived alone. I'm like, God, what an unbelievable bummer. I knew people who moved back in with their parents just like because they wanted to hang out. You know what I mean? Like reasonably.
That's a great point. It would have been so lonely or so. I mean, I know people who were engaged who broke up during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And that.
Or if you had a roommate that you didn't really like all that much, which was no problem. But pre-pandemic, you're like, hey, man, I'm never here anyway. Yeah. You know, you're a comic, I'm a comic. We're both gone all the time. And all of a sudden, it's like we're spending every waking second. Yeah. But I remember my wife and I going a little stir crazy, of course, but being like, man, what would it be like if we couldn't go in the backyard and like have a fire pit and like, or like I could go to the upstairs while she was downstairs, have a little bit of separation. And we talked about like, when we lived in Chicago in like small apartments, like I hard to fathom.
Yeah. It was a lot of like, well, going to the grocery store is our little treat today.
Yeah. Well, I mask up, put a face shield on,
full hazmat suit, like, exactly. This is great. I'm glad we're doing this.
I'm so unencumbered.
Yeah, I mean, I think that time really strengthened our marriage for sure. No, we weren't married at the time, but our relationship, we were just like, we didn't fight. Like, we got through it. We, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we were like, you know, very good for each other that entire time. So we knew we wanted to get married. We knew we wanted to have a house at some point.
Sure.
Borderline. I don't know anyone who has a home that in New York that their parents didn't have it like 30, 40 years ago or something, you know? So like for us, it would have been hard. And the true thing is like, I remember being like, yeah, I don't want to be buried in New York City.
Sure.
Like, so I'm like, I want to move before I die there.
Sure.
And, that was part of it. So it's just something that's kind of, you know, we started looking around. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens. We probably won't find anything. And then it just turned, like, it was fast.
What do you miss? What do you miss most about New York stand-up comedy? And then what do you like most about being back in Minneapolis?
I got you. I really do miss my comedy friends first and foremost.
There's so many more people there that you can meet more people like you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you can have like a pretty big group of like specific people that are on your wavelength. You know?
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I remember moving there and meeting people from like the Bronx who love the same things that I love, which I just never, you know, but other people don't know. Like, I'm an adopted kid who grew up in small town Minnesota. Like, I did not have a lot of like, oh, you like that too? Right? Like, it wasn't a lot of like
right.
black people especially who like just had some of the same, I'm going to say predilections. I've never said that in casual conversation, but whatever. As me, that makes it sound like we're under the same porn, and that's
I don't know. It's funny because it's not a dirty word, but it has a dirty connotation. Like because he has a predilection for mathematics. You know, it's always he has a predilection for feet.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, I did meet a lot of those people.
There's a lot of feet people out there.
There really are. And, but yeah, I just met a lot of people from different backgrounds who we shared a lot of the same experiences, like with what we were into. And then also like, you just slog it out together. It was just like, okay, we start in Long Island City at 6 p.m. We go to Brooklyn at 7:30. Then we hit this fun show in Manhattan. And then we come back to Queens later. And it's just like, you like gain 2 people, lose 5 people, whatever.
Sure.
It was like, it was like we're Lewis and Clark, like expeditioning comedy throughout New York City. And you just forge like a group of people, like a bond with a group of people that is awesome. Like some of those people are in my wedding and stuff like that and like came to my wedding. And it's that I miss. And I also miss like, it was cool to like do a show and then like, oh yeah, like Mulaney's going to drop on or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you just get to kind of not only just witness them in those spaces, but also just get to be like, yeah, where do I stack up? Not like, obviously this person's way better, but like, can I still get laughs after they saw the best thing they've ever seen?
Right.
You know, can I still, if Dan Soder's on the same show as me, you know, like maybe I'm definitely not doing voices as well as he's going to be doing voices or whatever, but like, can I still make people laugh in like my unique way and like feel like I belong on these lineups? And that was always just a fun challenge. There's the funniest people you've literally never heard. You'll never hear of them, and you've never heard of them, are in New York City and just kind of slogging it out, grinding it out right now. And like, I am so grateful for those times with those people for sure.
Nice.
And here, summer's good, I guess. No, no, I mean, a lot of my longest, like oldest friends in comedy are here. And like, you know, like guys like Greg Coleman, Mike Lester, Robert Burrows in and out of town. But like, those guys, like, we've done so much together that it's nice just to really have that connection with people, too. We've seen the highs, the lows, all the other stuff. And there are so many good comedy clubs here, comedians here, audiences here. And there's even better than all of that, there's still room to grow.
Yeah.
Like, there's still audiences we can reach. There's still a lot of heights we can all reach as comedians. And I'm just excited to see like where all of us can go, you know, moving forward from there.
We per capita, we have a crazy number of clubs and shows.
Yeah, I don't understand why, but yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. You
Yeah.
talk to somebody, you know, it's like, how do we have basically as many clubs as they have in Chicago?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's a much bigger city.
Yeah.
You know?
But you know, they all offer something a little bit different. And like, you know, what's awesome is like it's all anchored too by like this place, which is a top 5. I've now gotten to say like on my list of top 5 comedy clubs, I think I've performed at all of them, my own personal list. But like, this has always been one since I started. It'd be like, you know, Helium, it'd be Acme, it'd be Comedy Works in
Denver.
In Denver, and then Comedy on State.
Yeah,
and like
that would basically I would have basically the same list.
And there's definitely like other ones like Comedy Fort and all these other places. I don't want to forget.
Well, Comedy Fort's new.
Yeah,
Comedy Fort's one of the newer ones on the list. But no, those are like
when I started.
Yeah, 100%.
Those are all,
and they're all still great clubs too.
They're still great. And Acme, you know, like pound for pound, like I get it now. I understand. Like, you know, I don't know Lewis. I could be here for 50 years and I'll never be like, oh, I know Lewis. But like, I do feel like I see what he values and how he puts his club together and like how you see how other clubs operate. And you're like, oh, that's why it's so good. It's because you do care. And he's doing something incredible where he's very artist forward, which usually means you hemorrhage money.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Your club.
That's exactly right.
Love it, but nobody goes to it. So for him to kind of balance it out and be like, he really respects the artistry of comedy, which is hard to find. But also gets butts and seats is like an incredible opportunity for us to have this place here.
Yeah, it's a rare combination of people who genuinely deeply respect the art, but also have a business mind. And like, and all those clubs you mentioned, you know, like Wendy in Comedy Works, Eve and Anna, and back to their dad, Gus in Madison, all those people had a very clear, purposeful vision for what they did. That's the thing that unites all those clubs. You know,
Absolutely.
and when you work in enough clubs, you go, oh yeah. I mean, like it's really hard, obviously, but like that's clearly the motto. And because some people would think, well, doesn't every comedy club owner value comedy? And to which I would say, not even half.
I wish it was half. That'd be awesome.
I mean,
yeah.
I always tell people, half the time you're at a club, you're basically a walking jukebox that they feel like is going to need fixing.
Yeah. I don't even know. Sometimes I do comedy. I'm like, karaoke exists, right?
Yeah, right.
You don't need this. Let these people have fun. I don't even understand why I'm here.
Yeah, why do you want to do this?
Yeah,
I know why I want to do this here. Why do you want to do this here?
Yeah, so it's nice. Yeah, Minneapolis is just an incredible scene. Every time a friend comes through, or I have right now there's some friends in town who are kind of feeling it out or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, move here.
Yeah.
Just move here.
Yeah,
that's all. I think this could be. I understand, Austin's got a great scene and all this sort of stuff. I think we could be not right-wing Austin. Why not?
Yes. Austin's become the Bates Motel for every sex pest in the country.
That is true. Let's have a left-wing sex pest hostel where we can all just be free together. No, but I just think there's so many good spaces and so much opportunity. And if there are hungry people who are here, come here, be part of it. And bringing it back to the competition, as much as I joke about contests and how much they suck, that's not a joke. Contests do suck, but I do think there's something. I love seeing someone who cares and what happens when they lock in and they're like, this is me trying my best.
Yes.
So it is fun. I like that. I think a competition is a small step in that direction of being okay, when it matters, how do I perform? And even if you fail, that's great. You can learn from that. And if you succeed, hopefully you learn from that too. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
At some point, even if you never did contests, let's say I'm never doing a contest, right? Which is totally fine. I don't do a ton of them anymore. But you're gonna get maybe a don't tell spot or a TV spot or an audition. You're gonna be in the same scenario, which is like you said, I have to go out and be my absolute best self, right now, in this 6 or 7 minutes or whatever time they've given me. And a contest, especially an amateur contest when you're new, is the only way to practice that.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
And I think we talked about this a little bit off mic yesterday, but what I like about these amateur contests, if I have to pick a thing, is it is okay, sure, some of them are how many people did you bring, whatever, fine.
Sure.
But generally speaking, it is just how funny is this person in 3 minutes?
Yeah.
How funny is this person in 5 minutes, whatever. It's not about, I just did a competition just because of that thing of being I got to put myself out of my comfort zone, whatever. And I've truly felt like I had a really good set, but I'm I don't know that it even matters because there are certain boxes you can tell they're trying to fill.
100%.
And so this isn't about castability or whatever. Who do we need to fit into this space? It's literally just are you funny that night? Great. And
yeah, it might be about as pure a comedy contest as it can get, I think, because it really is just because nobody, it's the person could win and never show back up again.
Yeah.
Because it's not there's no, we hope you do.
Yeah.
But because it is just you got 3 minutes, no one knows who any of you are.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody. The only times I've ever seen somebody crush and not win is because somebody else also crushed, and it was just. Oh man, the year Lahiru got second, Andy Duong I think got first.
Sure. Two people I hate. Yeah, that's great.
They both could have won in any other year. They were both so good, But I've never seen somebody crush and get fifth.
Would you ever have? You should have Lahiru on. That's great. Someone who crushed and got in second.
I thought about it.
Can you do that? Because I think that'd be an interesting.
I think it would too. Because I was Lahiru's great. He's so funny.
Absolutely. Very funny,
but just tore it up. I mean, and I probably should have waited longer to tell him this because I told him I was man, last year you would have absolutely won this thing. Which at the moment is probably hard to hear, but it was true. I was wow, that guy was crushed.
There's something to that too of being you crush, you don't win, you realize you can survive. Right?
Yeah,
you can realize what you can handle, and you realize there is this growth thing of being I got the validation I needed. It wasn't for me that night, but I am funny. Someone told me I'm funny. Yeah. I can do this. It's fine. I was close. I didn't win. It's okay. And I think that's important too.
Classically, like second, third place finishers have often fared better in the long term in their career.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think it's 1-to-1 ratio or anything.
Yeah.
But it's not uncommon. Or like, I think Tommy Ryman never made it past the semis.
Yeah.
You know, like some people, you would just assume, like, well, I mean, clearly Tommy was in them.
Sure.
People still to this day will tell, Tommy told me this, that people will be like, oh, when you won the contest. And he's like, I never even came close to winning the contest. But people just assume that he did now.
That's very funny. That's actually, that's funny now. The years immediately after, you're like, okay, let's not talk about it. You know, like,
I'm sure he was salty about it for 6 months, you know, but back in the day.
That's really funny.
So what advice would you have to people doing any contest in general, but this contest in specific?
Okay, good question. You would think I would have thought of that before.
That would have felt like a little underhand softball.
It's like the easiest possible thing. I would say competitions. None of this stuff defines who you are. You change daily as a person. I mean, you change hopefully month after month, year after year as a comedian. You keep growing. But just embrace it for like the fun kind of spectacle that it is and just see what happens. See what happens when you're a little bit nervous. See what happens like, you know, when you're unsure, when you feel like the odds are stacked against you, how do you perform? And then like evaluate that and be like, do I like who I am when I'm nervous? Do I like who I am when the pressure is on? And if not, you adjust. And if yes, use that. Take that energy and like when the pressure isn't on, find a way to apply it so you can bring it every time. Like I think the people who do the best, I think you're talking about this a little bit, is like the people who are like, yeah, I'll do the competition, whatever. And they're not like, if they win or if they lose, whatever, they're not walking around and being like, yep, I got first place in the competition. Guess I get a TV show. And it's not Carson in the 70s or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So like be respectful of the thing and take it seriously, I guess. But like also understand nothing matters. Like none of this matters. And just try to be as funny as possible. Probably without pulling your dick out. If you got a dick, don't pull it out. But other than that, I think you're good, right?
Yeah, and if you have a really good joke that involved,
I thought you were gonna say if you have a really big dick.
you know what's funny? I mean, spoiler alert: don't pull your dick out in the contest. But I mean, famously, Brooks Robinson. One of the funny sets. Anyone. I mean, people still talk about it to this day. But
here's what I'll say: I'm gonna do my own contest. If you want to pull your dick out and show me, I'll judge it.
Contest is in the handicap bathroom stall. In the men's
it
room.
will cost you $50 to enter.
Of course. So I gotta make.
And I mean that both ways. But yeah, I don't know. Have fun with it, and let's just like see who you are after you do a thing that you're unsure about.
That's a great way to put it. Is like a contest. There's many different ways that you'll kind of get a way to get a perspective on how you work and what you're like, and figuring it all out. But a contest is a great way to like forcibly confront some stuff. And like I said, if you go like, man, my energy just really sucks in 3 minutes, or I just, like, okay, so then what does that mean? What's the reverse of that mean?
Yeah.
Can I be, does that mean I'm actually the great headline? Could I become a great headliner because it's a slow burn?
Right.
Because some people are not contest comics. They have a different energy. And then some people are okay comics and great contestant comics. There's people who are like, that energy is so good for a short burst and it is so obnoxious for a half hour, but those people can clean up.
Sure. Let me put this more succinct. I just realized what I'm actually trying to say, and I agree with everything I just rambled about for 15
You agree with yourself? That's good.
Yeah, someone has to.
There's no conflicts here.
But I think competition is good. These competitions are good because they push you out of your comfort zone. And to be a good comedian, you need to like push your comfort zones out. Like you need to see what makes you feel bad or good or whatever, and that's the only way to grow. So if you want to grow as a comedian, I think early on these are like a really good thing to do. That's it.
I think that's great advice. Well, Ben Katzner, thanks for doing the podcast.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you back here at Acme.